Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I grew up as an only child, raised by my father after my mother passed away when I was 7. My dad ran a moderately successful family business, a manufacturing company he inherited from his father. From an early age, I admired him and wanted to follow in his footsteps. I was fascinated by the way he ran the company, how he made decisions, and the respect he commanded from his employees. I spent my childhood dreaming of the day I could join him in the business and eventually take over. But my father always dismissed my interest. "This isn't a job for girls," he'd say. "You wouldn't understand the pressures of running a business." I thought if I worked hard and proved myself, he'd change his mind. I got straight A's in school, studied business administration in college, and even interned at several reputable companies to build experience. But none of it mattered. To him, I was just a girl who had no business being in charge of something as important as the family company. When I was 22, my father remarried a woman named Linda. She came into our lives with her son, Brad, who was 27 at the time. Brad was spoiled and completely uninterested in hard work. Linda doted on him and constantly bragged about how brilliant he was, despite him flunking out of 2 colleges and hopping between minimum wage jobs. It quickly became clear that Linda and Brad were my father's new priorities. While I was working tirelessly to prove my worth, Brad was being groomed to take over the family business. My father started bringing him to board meetings, introducing him to clients, and giving him responsibilities within the company, despite the fact that Brad had 0 qualifications or experience. When I asked my father why I wasn't being considered for the same opportunities, he scoffed and said, "Brad has the makings of a leader. You're better suited for other things, like starting a family." That comment shattered me. It was clear that no matter what I did, I'd never be good enough in his eyes. When my father announced his retirement a few years later, he revealed that he was leaving the company to Linda and Brad. He didn't even try to sugarcoat it. He said outright that he didn't think I had what it took to run the business because I was too emotional and didn't understand the realities of leadership. I was heartbroken and furious. This wasn't just about the business. It was about years of being overlooked and dismissed simply because of my gender. I told my father he was making a mistake, but he wouldn't listen. Linda and Brad celebrated their victory while I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered dreams. After the betrayal, I made a decision. If my father didn't believe in me, I'd prove him wrong. I took every bit of knowledge and experience I'd gained and started my own business. It wasn't easy. There were countless late nights, financial struggles, and moments of doubt, but I was determined to succeed. Fast forward to now, and my business is thriving. I've built a successful company from the ground up, and I couldn't be prouder of what I've accomplished. I have a loyal team, a growing client base, and annual profits that rival those of my father's company in its heyday. I never looked back, and I certainly never reached out to my father for validation. I poured my heart and soul into my business, and the results speak for themselves. Meanwhile, things haven't been going so well for my father's company. Under Brad's leadership, it's been a disaster. He made a series of poor decisions, firing experienced employees, overspending on unnecessary upgrades, and neglecting key clients. That led to a steep decline in revenue. My father, who had always prided himself on the company's legacy, was devastated, but refused to admit he'd made a mistake in handing it over to Brad. Then my father got sick. He's been battling health issues for the past year, and with him unable to step in and fix things, the company is on the brink of bankruptcy. Linda and Brad are in over their heads, and the family business that my grandfather built is now at risk of collapsing entirely. A few weeks ago, I got a call from my father. He sounded frail and desperate, a stark contrast to the confident man I grew up admiring. He admitted that the company was in trouble and said he needed my help to save it. I was stunned. After years of being told I wasn't good enough, now he wanted me to swoop in and clean up Brad's mess. I asked him what he expected me to do, and he said, "You've proven yourself with your business. I know you have what it takes to turn things around." I reminded him that he'd once told me I didn't have what it took to run a company because I was just a girl. He tried to brush it off, saying he'd been wrong and that I should let bygones be bygones. But I couldn't ignore the years of hurt and rejection. I told him I didn't have the time or energy to save his business. My own company is thriving, and I'm not about to sacrifice that to fix something he gave away to someone else. I said if Brad was good enough to inherit the business, he should be good enough to save it. My father didn't take my refusal well. He accused me of being petty and selfish, saying I was letting my personal feelings get in the way of family loyalty. He said if business falls, then when he's gone, Linda and Brad are not going to have any income to live from and going to have to sell the estate. He even threatened to disown me, saying that if I didn't step in, he'd cut me out of his will. I told him I didn't care about the will. I've built my own success without his help, and I don't need his money. What I needed was his belief in me when it mattered most, and he failed me. Now the entire family is divided. Linda and Brad are furious, accusing me of abandoning them in their time of need. Some relatives think I should help for the sake of preserving the family legacy, while others think I'm justified in standing my ground. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to save my father's business after he gave it to my stepmother and stepson? OP's father made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. He chose to overlook OP for years, dismissing OP's abilities simply because of OP's gender. Now that his golden child has driven the company into the ground, he suddenly realized OP's worth. That's not how it works. OP has already proven herself by building a successful business from scratch. OP doesn't owe him, or Brad, anything. If Brad was good enough to inherit the company, he should be good enough to fix it. OP should not let them guilt her into sacrificing her hard-earned success to clean up their mess. And now let's hear the community's opinion. This is a classic case of someone wanting to have their cake and eat it too. Your father disregarded you for years, gave your birthright to someone unqualified, and now expects you to bail him out when it all falls apart. That's not fair. Not the a-hole. You've built your own legacy, and you have every right to protect it. Your father's threats to disown you are just another manipulation tactic. Stand your ground. He needs to realize that actions have consequences, and you're not obligated to save a company that he chose to exclude you from. Not the a-hole, and honestly, I admire your strength. It takes a lot to walk away from a situation like this, especially when it involves family. He let his biases cloud your judgment, and now he's paying the price. Helping him might salvage the business, but at what cost? Your time, energy, and peace of mind? It's not worth it. You've proven him wrong by succeeding on your own terms, and that's the best revenge. Let Brad and Linda deal with the mess they created. Your father is trying to rewrite history now that he needs you. Don't let him. He disrespected you, dismissed your abilities, and handed your birthright to someone who wasn't qualified. You owe him nothing. Not the a-hole. Stand your ground and focus on your own business. You've already proven that you're more than capable, and you don't need to sacrifice your success to fix his mistakes. He made his choice. Now he has to live with it. Long story short, my fiancé dated Kelly all through college, and his family loved her. He admitted that he thought they'd get married, but she ended up cheating on him during their last semester of school. Her explanation was that she just wanted to try being with other guys to make sure that he was the one. My fiancé didn't buy it, but no hard feelings because he said they were both falling out of love with each other anyways, and he said it was obvious they were both getting together out of obligation by that point. I never got along with my fiancé's mother, and when we got engaged, she suddenly started spending more time with Kelly. The families are still friends. I think what pisses me off more is that it wasn't even like his mother was holding out hope for them to get back together. I'm pretty sure that she was just doing that to piss me off. Anyways, I tried to manage the issue by just barely involving my future mother-in-law and not really interacting with her more than necessary. I thought that would be enough to contain the situation, but a few days ago before my bridal shower, my fiancé's cousin texted to warn me that my future mother-in-law was going to bring Kelly to my bridal shower uninvited. She sent me screenshots of a family group chat where mother-in-law was laughing and joking that she couldn't wait to see my face at the surprise. And straight out of crappy fanfic's playbook, they were both going to wear white. I just kind of reached my max level of patience, so I immediately texted my friends to change the venue. It was only a few of us with a brunch reservation, and my maid of honor bringing decorations, so it wasn't hard at all. To say that my mother-in-law was pissed would honestly be an understatement. She blew up my fiancé's phone, yelling about how she drove over an hour only to show up and have the restaurant tell her we canceled our reservation. Now she's trying to play the "I missed out on an important life event" card, crying to whoever will listen. She threatened to skip our wedding, and I told her I wouldn't mind and she could use the time to hang out with Kelly, since they were obviously besties now. My fiancé is technically on my side, but he said I didn't have to be so harsh about it, since it was now causing more drama. But I feel like I shouldn't have to accept her behavior to keep the peace, and she clearly doesn't give a flying F about how I feel. The only thing I feel bad about is that he's been fighting with his mother more now, which is why I'm kind of wondering if I took it too far. Why did no one, especially your fiancé, not tell your mother-in-law she wasn't allowed to bring Kelly? This entire situation sounds exhausting. Not the a-hole. This whole thing is worrisome. The fact that your future mother-in-law would actually be so mean and petty as to bring Kelly to your bridal shower, as well as your fiancé to not fully be on your side. You are causing more drama? I know this sounds petty, but she started it. Honey, I hate to write this, but you do need to rethink whether you want to go through with this wedding. For your fiancé to say that you shouldn't have been so harsh by changing the venue, which kept his mom from humiliating you with bringing Kelly there, says a lot about his relationship with his mom. He may very well be a mama's boy. Even if he is not totally supporting you. Just saying. Not the a-hole. If she was bringing his ex to your shower, I would have called her out on it and advised that she is no longer welcome in your life until she fully apologizes. That ain't cool at all. Not the a-hole. Did he see the screenshots? Does he not understand that his mother bringing around the woman who cheated on him amidst the beginnings of your marriage ceremonies, plans, is downright disrespectful to you, him, and your relationship, your future? She's clearly trying to sabotage your relationship by doing all this so close to your wedding. He needs to deal with this now, or your marriage will always have her, his mother, as an intrusive issue. Edit. I wanted to share some more info to clear up some questions. 1. I've tried very hard to placate and form a relationship with my mother-in-law. When we first started dating, I tried to plan lunch dates to get to know her. I've brought her thoughtful treats whenever I visited, like her favorite pastries, and have even tried to reach out just to chat or see how she's doing. Every attempt was rebuffed. I learned that she threw the pastries away, for example, or extremely awkward, like the longest lunch of my life. 2. My mother-in-law is the type to do whatever she wants without checking, and with no care to the consequences. So talking to her about the screenshots or trying to get her side would never have worked. Fiancé's cousin tried to warn her there would be consequences. And this is speaking from experience. When I moved in with my fiancé, we decided to renovate. She hated my choices, stating that I had poor taste, and let herself into our home when we were at work and started to repaint over my walls. She obviously isn't a pro, and I came home to half-painted walls and crap all over my floor. She never apologized or paid for the damage. 3. My fiancé is trying. He always steps in, i.e., taking his mom's emergency key to our home away, cutting her off whenever she starts to diatribe about me, and does always pick me. But he's very close to his father, and I don't want to cut off that relationship because I do actually love my fiancé very much and am willing to deal with mother-in-law if it means he can keep a relationship with his dad. 4. Lastly, I didn't want to include this in the original post because I didn't want to pull that card. But his mother has stated plainly that she'd never accept me because I was from another culture. She said she just couldn't click with me because she didn't understand my customs. Even though we were born and raised in the same country, I'm just a different race, and would never relate to me no matter how hard I tried to fit in with the family. Thankfully, she's the only one on his side of the family that feels that way, but it doesn't make it hurt less. I, male 46, have 2 sons, male 7 and 8, with my ex. I got engaged to my fiancée, female 22, recently. She loves my sons and has an amazing relationship with them. My sons also love her. However, she has made it clear that she doesn't want to be a parent to my sons or babysit them, which is okay because they already have 2 parents. My ex and I are co-workers and both have a job that requires us to be away from home a lot. Last weekend, we both had to go to another city. None of our usual babysitters or family members were available. As a last option, I called my fiancée and asked her if she could babysit my sons for the weekend, and she agreed since there was no other choice. But she said she is still not going to act like a parent, which was okay with us. The day after we left, my ex's parents called and said they can have the boys now. I called my sons to tell them, but they begged me to let them stay with my fiancé. I talked to her to see if she is okay with it, and she said yes, So I told my sons they can stay with her. We went back home and everything seemed okay. My sons claimed that they had the best weekend ever, and my fiancé said they didn't bother her. Sure, they ate junk food all weekend, didn't do any homework, stayed up late, and other things like that, but it was just a weekend, so I thought it's no big deal. Yesterday I started getting calls from my ex-in-laws calling me an a-hole for leaving my sons with someone so young and irresponsible, when I could have left my sons with them. Apparently, my sons have told them about their fun weekend, and they were very pissed. They've even somehow found my fiancé's number and texted her calling her different names. Am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. I'm not even going to touch the fact that your new fiancé is literally less than half your age and has no experience under her belt yet. If she is your fiancé, she's going to be some sort of adult figure towards your kids. What kind of person dates someone with kids and openly says, "I'm never going to parent them"? I'll tell you who. People who shouldn't date parents. And who should single parents date? I'll tell you. Not people who refuse to have anything to do with your kids and literally have to be asked to babysit as a last resort. Holy duck. You're more interested in this whirlwind romance with a girl who's more interested in her youthful freedom and your financial stability than your own children. You're looking like a really crappy father here. Like, really crappy. Midlife crisis much? Kind of yuck. Yes, the a-hole. And creepy. I'm a year older than your fiancé. I have little siblings. When I babysit, at a minimum, I make sure they eat their veggies and go to bed at a normal time. At best, she's indifferent to them, and at worst, she's neglectful. Why you would want to marry someone that is young enough to be your child is beyond me. And why she would want to marry someone with kids if she doesn't want to be involved is also confusing. Hope you enjoy your 3 kids. Yes, the a-hole. Until I read the entire post, I assumed not parent them meant that fiancé was not going to overstep boundaries and try to force a parental relationship. However, as it turns out, it means that fiancé was not willing to act as a normal adult babysitter would when watching children for a weekend. Of course the children are going to prefer to stay with someone who lets them do whatever they want. That is a given, and it's an excuse. The in-laws started engaging in a-hole behavior when they texted your fiancé with insults, as most likely she was not specifically related to this weekend, but to their hostility with you as a person and the ex. Their hostility to you is probably well earned, since you are a 46-year-old man who is engaged to someone who could be your daughter. So you are a major a-hole just for being in this relationship and what it indicates about how you view women. My dad and my ex's dad are business partners. Currently, both my ex and I have a small share in the business, but we're both expected to take over once our parents retire and transfer their shares to us. My ex is convinced my fiancé is only with me for money and the company. He has been insisting I ask him to sign a prenup beforehand to protect the company, but I felt like it was insulting to him, so I refused. However, my fiancé has recently gotten more and more interested in the company, and it's causing tension between him and my ex. In one of their recent fights, my ex told him he would need to sign a prenup before we got married. My fiancé refused and asked my ex who he thought he was. My ex told him if he wasn't in it for the company, he would sign it, but my fiancé continued to refuse, so my ex took it as confirmation for his doubts. I never said anything while they were fighting, because neither of them listened to me anyway, and I didn't like my fiancé's reaction to the idea of a prenup. Once we went home, my fiancé was angry at me for not sticking up for him or defending our relationship. He also got even angrier after I told him I thought my ex was right and we should sign a prenup. Am I the a-hole? Everyone sucks here. You and your fiancé should definitely get a prenup, but your ex is way too involved in your new relationship and your fiancé's. If you're planning on working with both your ex and your fiancé while they constantly fight, and your ex still feels like he has authority to give input on your personal life, I don't think this is going to end well for you. Not the a-hole, and your ex is right. You should have a prenup to protect the company that he is part owner of. But you should be having those conversations with each of them separately. They should not be discussing it with each other. Everyone sucks here. I never said anything while they were fighting because neither of them listened to me anyway. Are you sure your fiancé is really an improvement on your ex? Or that you want your personal life to remain so closely tied to the family business, when apparently no one involved can be professional about all this? The fact your ex may be right that a prenup is a good idea here doesn't change the fact that it's not his place to weigh in, and you need to make that clear to him, And the fact he's being overbearing about it doesn't mean you and your fiancé shouldn't still sit down and figure this out together because you want a prenup. I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years. We're both in our mid-20s. For a year and 10 months, we both believed that neither of us had kids. A message from my boyfriend's sister to him 2 months ago changed that. His girlfriend from his hometown was suddenly claiming that he was the father of her 6-year-old son. They'd split up at 18 when they'd both left to go to college, and he'd never heard from her again. Boyfriend's sister had seen the old girlfriend out in the supermarket with her kid, and after a bit of small talk, she just casually mentioned that boyfriend was the father, and it was probably time for him to know. Boyfriend goes home ASAP for a paternity test, and lo and behold, he is the kid's father. A very important note. Before this, both of us were child-free in life and mind. I left everything in my boyfriend's hands since I was never going to dictate what happens. But after one playdate, he started going on about how he couldn't wait for his son to come and visit us in our city and see the sights. I smiled and nodded, and the date was eventually decided for last week. It was hell from start to finish. Highlights include me waking up to the kid refusing to get in the shower, pulling my curtain down, and spraying my toiletries across the shower wall. The kid throwing any food he hated on the ground, and when his mom asked him, at my extreme pushing, to stop pulling the leaves from my plants, he smashed my vase. The mother did nothing, and my boyfriend didn't feel dad enough to discipline him, so I just had to deal with it. The mother made it clear she didn't want me telling her kid off for being a brat. The reason I'm making this post is because of my boyfriend's insistence that we are all now a family. We were out last night with close friends, and my boyfriend was telling them all about how he is loving being a dad, and how he can't wait for the kid to have a little brother or sister in a few years when we're a bit more financially stable. No, I'm not a mother, and I'm not a stepmother. I'm a woman who dates a man who has a son. And before this, the only extension I would ever have to that is being wife to a man who has a son. I said to him after that my opinion on kids had not changed, and he just scoffed and acted like I was a child saying I liked clouds because they were puffy. I can barely handle the kid he has now being in my life, but this sudden change in him is what is pushing me to breaking point. I confided in a friend about how I feel, and they said that I would be the one firmly in the wrong if we broke up, since what's done is done, and I should have decided that if I was going to break up with him over this, then it should have been the day he found out the results of the test. I'm still not sure what to do, but am I the a-hole for wanting to break up over such a big life change that has changed my partner? Not the a-hole, because you guys had a child-free life in mind. Yes, circumstances have changed, and it's okay to end the relationship. You are doing what's right by your boyfriend, since he wants to have more kids now, and by his current child, since you don't want to play any sort of maternal role in his life. No a-hole. You have every right to walk away from this relationship now that it has changed so significantly. The only a-hole here is the ex, for not telling him sooner. The kid is also 6. How crappy would it be to just be introduced to your dad at 6 because your mom was too lazy to do it? With a mom like that, no wonder the kid is acting like he is. Introducing a parent shouldn't be done randomly. Also, doesn't feel dad enough to discipline his son? What kind of crap is that? You don't even need to be a parent to discipline a kid. I think the boyfriend secretly hates being a dad and feels forced into it, and trying to cope by saying he loves being a dad when in reality he knows his life is ducked up. No a-hole. Your boyfriend is not the a-hole. He didn't abandon his child. He didn't know he had one, and did a pretty stand-up thing by now taking care of his son. He's doing what's best for the kid. You're not the a-hole. You had a happy relationship. Something changed. In this case, a child. You are no longer happy, and no one owes anyone else a relationship in life. If your boyfriend had another big life change that affected you, say he decided he would no longer work for a living, or took a job in another country, no one would blame you for saying, "Well, I'm sorry, these new conditions are no longer working for me." And you definitely didn't owe anyone another kid because he now wants one, and you still don't. It's a sucky situation, but honestly, sticking around is not what's best for you or for the kid. I want to add the kid misbehaving is probably a response to the big changes in his life. If you don't want to be stepmom to the kid just because he's being difficult, then that's not a good reason. If you don't want to be stepmom because you don't want kids, then that's fair.